Hello, I'm Daniele Joubert, and I will be chatting to you guys around preventing churn through XPs. I currently work at Uber Eats in South Africa, and I'm the head of growth and consumer for Sub-Saharan Africa. So it's been an incredible journey working at Uber Eats, and we've learned so much. And I'm really excited to take you guys through everything around XPs and how to actually implement it and build it into your daily strategy. So to start with, Uber Eats. So Uber Eats is delivering beauty products and flowers and toothpaste and firewood and baby necessities and pet food and all of these things that are not food. And it's definitely not in the name. And I think a lot of people around the world ask the question, but how? How did Uber Eats go from delivering and fulfilling restaurant food as hot and as quickly as possible to their clients to delivering everything else that is not food? And that's really the crux of my talk, is how do you innovate and build better products for your clients, not just by listening to them. So the agenda for today is listening to your customers are only the beginning. And then I'll take you guys through setting up your team for success when it comes to experimentation. We'll also chat through some ideas around guidelines for setting up experiments. And then I would want to show you a case study in South Africa of an experiment that we run that, again, just proves the results is on the behaviors of eaters are sometimes a lot different than what we expected it to be. So listening to your customers, it's only the beginning. So how did Uber Eats get where we are today? So the business started as a ride-sharing business, which you all know. This whole idea of, can you get a ride? Can you go where you need to be at the click of a button? From here, we started, creating, and we were one of, the creators of this idea of a gig economy and building and creating opportunities and earning opportunities for people in our network. And because we've solved this idea of moving people from point A to point B at the touch of a button, this idea of delivering food started. We started testing it in the US. Can we get it right? Can our tech and our solutions and our logistics, solve not just moving people, but moving food from point A to point B as effectively and as efficiently as possible? But let's jump to 2022. Suddenly, the world got hit by a pandemic. Lockdown got announced, no restaurants were able to operate. And as Uber Eats, this is what we were doing. But as a business, we've learned to adapt and to diversify and to make plans. And we were really able to enable our clients to get what they need during difficult times, by ensuring safety and less contact between people. So we went from delivering food to delivering pharmaceutical products and groceries and liquor and anything that consumers needed that they could not get because of the lockdown restrictions. So this idea of listening to your customers, if we listened to our customers, we would have stayed a virtual food court. This is what Uber Eats is. It was a virtual food court, one place where you can get all your favorite brands, order your favorite food, and get it delivered in time. But by not just listening to our customers, by running XPs, by testing, new product features, by doing trials, we've actually become an entire virtual mall, which, if I were to ask people 5 years ago, hey, do you think Uber Eats should be delivering jewelry or clothing? Most people would have probably said, no, that's not a product fit. And here we are today delivering just that. Anything at the click of a button in the convenience of your own home or a location that, where you need that specific thing. So how did we get it? How do you set up a team for success when it comes to experimentations? How do you set up your team to be able to build experimentations and learn what their eaters like, their clients like, what they want, without them being able to articulate it themselves? So this entire idea starts with understanding your users in a data conscious world. So the first thing is get to know your users. What is the information that you have, the behaviors, the decisions, the choices that they make in their experience with your product? For us, it could be when they order, what is their basket size, how frequently do they order, what are some of the things and the pain points and decision-making points for your consumer in the journey. The second thing is decentralize your data. Yes, keep personal information under lock. Make sure that is as safe as it can be, but give your team and the rest of the business access to information. The only way to truly create a data-driven culture is by giving them access to the information that they need in order to make better decisions that's data-driven. And then finally, if you know your customers and you have access to your data, run experimentations. Build cohorts based on behaviors. Run experiments as quickly and measure them as accurately as possible, and really use the results to adopt your strategy. But what is the fundamentals of making experimentations part of your business? The first fundamental is it needs to be entrenched in what you do every single day. The number of problems and the number of unanswered questions that you have about your current users' needs and your future users' needs and behaviors just increases every single day. So in order for you to truly understand them better, to really improve your product, your experiences, and that's just your business behavior and performance overall, you really need to make experimentation part and a critical part of your strategy and execution. It shouldn't be something that's an afterthought or once a year or on big changes, but it should be entrenched in every single decision that you make. The second thing, in order to make experimentation entrenched in your business, you need the technology to support it. Running multiple experiments weekly at the same time is very time consuming. Focus on building technology platforms that allows teams to set up experimentations and experiments very quickly. Make sure the technology not just allows them to set up the XP, but also to run the results. XP analysis are basic stats, but if you need and have to ask your team to run these results manually every single time, it reduces their ability to run faster and create more experiments and ask more questions. So build the tech that allows them to do that on every single product that you develop, on every single question you have, every engagement, as quickly as possible, and you'll see how quickly you can learn. And then the last fundamental is focus. When experimentation becomes entrenched in your company, and when you have the technology that allows you to quickly execute and validate your assumptions, the world becomes your oyster. But as soon as the world becomes your oyster, the skill becomes in your ability to prioritize your assumptions. Make sure you are focused on only trying to test one thing at a time. Test one thing at a time, but run as many tests as possible. Focus on assumptions that could drive higher return on investments. This could be either from a financial perspective, like conversion, or it could be on an experiential from an experiential perspective. So just make sure that there is one specific thing that you're focused on for that experiment and only try to validate that assumption. So why does this matter? In the past, acquisition was king. So a company's ability to get a user on the platform was the most important thing because the friction to move between products or companies was high. So most companies invested a lot of money in getting their customers onto the platform, getting them to use it, getting them to download it. And once they're there, they're sticky. But because in today's world and the technology environment that we work in, it's so easy for most consumers to jump between products, between companies, banks. Something that were very hard to move between a few years ago is a click of a button. So in today's life, retention is king. And the only way in which you can really drive and improve your retention is to drive loyalty, is to improve their experience, is to diversify your product. to create delight moments that they love, and also product updates. But you can only achieve this if you entrench and make experimentation part of your life in order to give your consumers updates and experiences and loyalty experiences that they didn't even know they want. So be less dependent on market research and test your assumption and ideas in a real world environment. So what are some of the guidelines of setting up XPs? So the first guideline is your objective of what you're trying to achieve and your hypothesis are two different things. Your objective needs to be linked to a business question that you're trying to answer or achieve or solve for. And your hypothesis should be linked to what you will be testing specifically. The second thing is spend time formulating your hypothesis. A lot of the times, something that might seem very straightforward ends up being very complicated, and something that might seem very complicated ends up being very straightforward. But if your hypothesis is clear and you know exactly what you are testing for, it is much easier to set up your entire experiment. The second thing is clearly define your primary and your secondary KPIs. A lot of the times in experiments, the results could show improvements on your primary KPIs. But where people get caught up is this unintended consequences. So ensure that you consider both what the good that you were trying to achieve and that you might have achieved, as well as what might be some of the metrics that had a negative effect. What was that, and how do you balance the positive with the negative to truly understand what the impact of this change would be on your business? The fourth thing is create a controlled environment as much as it's feasible. This is a real world experiment. This is not a theoretic environment. So yes, exclude your treatment groups as much as possible from other elements and other engagements that could influence the results. But do not try to isolate them completely so that the results of your experiment is actually skewed and it's not really a true reflection of what the results would be if you had to make it live in a real world environment. The fifth thing is think about the execution before you launch. The experimentations that you do needs to be linked to something that you can change, implement, and impact. So if you test assumptions that provides incredible results, but it's not something that you can deliver on, you will actually be wasting your time. So again, when it comes to the focus, make sure you're testing something that will drive business value, as well as something that you can implement or that can impact your strategy in order to get the most from it. And then lastly, test one hypothesis at a time. You test one hypothesis using different treatments versus trying to test different hypotheses using one treatment. So really focus to ensure that you know what you do with the results, because this again will impact what this means for you going forward and the business results that you're trying to achieve. So I want to end off with a very, very interesting case study that we did in South Africa. So the case study was around how can we use choice architecture to improve our conversion rates on promotions and the promotions that we run. So our business objective is improving our conversion on promotional campaigns in order to increase our orders and our gross bookings and just in general, our top line performance. So the hypothesis that we made is we really wanted to test and utilize behavioral heuristics, one specific one, which is called choice architecture, in some of our campaigns in order to make sure or to see what the impact will be on our conversion rates for the users that we targeted. So how we decided to set up this experiment was for treatment one, we will be sending 3 promotions in the same campaign to the same cohort of eaters and allow the user to actually choose which of these promotions they would like to use, and then to see whether they end up using it, whether they end up placing an order, and also what the value of those orders would be for the business. The second, third, and fourth treatment groups will each only get 1 promo code And each one of those promo codes will be linked to the same value of one of the promo codes in treatment one. So our primary KPIs was really, we wanted to test what the incremental impact would be to our business. So what was the user uplift? What was the trip uplift? What was the gross bookings uplift that we would achieve if we run these promos and also across the different treatment groups? Our secondary KPIs, however, was efficiency. It doesn't help we target our treatment one. It drives a lot of growth, but it actually costs us a lot more than what the other promotional engagements would have costed us. So quite interesting if you see some of the engagements that we built. So on the choice promo and treatment one, the users got emails and push notifications and in-app experiences all linked to choice. Hey, pick a promo that speaks to you. Get 75 Rand off because you're a solo eater, or get 150 Rand off because you're ordering for a family. Or if you're spontaneous, get 99% off your order, but then spend it in the next 3 hours. So again, gamifying their choices, but really giving them the option to select one of the options. This is an example of just treatment 4 and the 99% off promo. So it was like, hey, come into the app and get 99% off your next promotion. Again, we had emails and push notifications, and we had the same amount of communications on both treatment 1 as well as all the other treatment groups that we targeted. So if I had to ask you, person X, if you were a logical person and you got either one of these promotions, which ones do you think would have received the most orders? Which one would have driven the best business performance, right? On the one side, it's kind of busy. There's a lot of information. You know, the title is all around the choice and picking an option, versus 4, which is very much straightforward, 99% off. I mean, I don't even think you can get a better deal than that anyway. But the results were so interesting. So if you take treatment 1 and you compare it versus the averages of treatment 2 to 4, the user uplift was 204% more. The GB uplift was 61% more. And on the secondary KPIs, you know, the cost per incremental eater and the cost per incremental gross booking was a lot less. So the conclusion of this experiment was, by giving people a choice between 3 options instead of just giving them one, we got a higher uplift. The campaign drove a lot more efficient results. We created a gamified experience, which also increased our retention and engagement of the consumers that we targeted. So this for me is another example of, and just a proof point of how important it is not just to make assumptions about what your product updates or initiatives will have on your eaters or your clients' behavior, but rather really embedding experimentation in your daily life in order to test your assumptions and really see what the impact of this would be on your business. So this is my conclusion for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot more companies build experimentation into their product design, as well as just into their daily operations. Thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful day.